Hello and welcome to Toy Polloi 2. Today we have another video where I'm doing something slightly different on the channel, and that is rebuilding a figure to make it a new mascot. You'll have recently seen that I did a video turning this Optimus Prime into past his prime, and I was really happy with the end results. He's a bit of a mishmash of pieces, but I think he looks like a really nice figure, so he became a new mascot. And the name I'm still not 100% convinced about. I was sort of thinking about Optimus being a better name for him, but we can change that as time goes on. So for now he is still past his prime. But as well as that, I have this guy, which is Megatron. I'm thinking he may be called Megagon, but again, that's a sort of early name for him, so if you had a better idea, do leave a comment below. And as you can see, he is in a rather sorry state. In fact, he's in a really sorry state. There's lots of glue and marks all over him. His arm is busted off. We're missing the barrel. But I think I can make some sort of a nice mascot out of him. So let's take a closer look at what's up and what needs fixing, and we'll see what we can do today to get him in a sort of more displayable state. So this figure was sent in to me in a job lot of broken pieces by a friend of mine, Alan. It's the remains of his collection that he'd been sort of putting together, and these were the broken bits that he'd used to fix up some of his toys. So yeah, you can see that this Megatron is certainly past best. One arm has broken off, but I actually think that's going to be a fairly straightforward fix. Often when this arm breaks off, you actually lose a bit of the plastic on the outside, but for once on this one, it's just broken off the little post on the inside. So I've actually ordered a piece of plastic to hopefully fix that. I've measured that hole on the main body. That's 5mm. I don't actually have any 5mm styrene, so I've just ordered some of that, and hopefully that will arrive fairly soon and we can get that bit repaired, because I think that's possibly the easiest part to repair. It does need a good clean. I can feel the hand is incredibly stiff to get out there, so we'll clean that part up. The rest of the figure, as you can see, is pretty filthy and pretty dirty. There's lots of marks and grime all over it, and I've started to do a little bit of cleaning on here. Some of this residue I've been trying to clean off with lighter fluid, but I have to say it's not shifting, so I've moved on to something slightly stronger, which is Surgical Spirit, which does actually seem to be working, but I don't like to use too much of that because it can damage the plastic, but I will have to here to remove the remains of that grime. And then you can see there's lots of sort of damage to stickers and dirt, and yeah, just generally dirt and grime everywhere. Let's transform him and see what he looks like and see what else needs doing. Okay, so here he is transformed, and actually it doesn't actually look too bad like that. Very dirty still, and you can see that this part is snapped off. The screw that should hold that on has disappeared or been removed at some point, and it also looks like, I'm going to guess that that possibly has been repaired. There's glue on there. There is a crack in it as well, so we will have to try and fix that up. Maybe a bit of plastic weld on that will hold that back together. Possibly even just a longer screw. Sometimes the screws used on transformers are a bit short, so if we make a longer screw that goes further in, that will make a stronger fixing. So we need to repair that. And he's a fairly floppy character, but these ones always are fairly floppy. I can see that that joint is pretty loose and the joints here are very loose, so hopefully we can tighten some of those up. I think the first thing to do though is actually take him apart. I'm not going to take him fully apart, there's no need to fully take these things apart, but I'll take bits of him apart, and so that we can get him cleaned up. I think I'm going to have to take this body section apart so we can take this off and tighten up the joints there. I can also see that his head, I think, has possibly been painted. Looks fairly badly painted, so I might end up taking that out and see if we can remove the sort of hand applied paint and redo that. So that will have to require some .4 brake fluid to remove the paint. But yeah, let's take him apart and give him a good clean first, and then we can start trying to reconstruct him. Everything's now back and cleaned and it's all looking a lot better. I've managed to get most of the marks off. There's still a few marks on this handle here. I used some of the isopropyl alcohol, the surgical spirit, to remove as much as I can, but there's just a few marks on the plastic, but otherwise it's not looking too bad. Everything else is cleaned up really pretty well. There was a lot of glue residue over everything, and I have a feeling it was Evo Stick, which has actually washed off pretty well. Evo Stick is a sort of brown, fairly soft glue, and so I wasn't quite sure what would happen, but just washing it off has cleaned most of it off, so we can now start putting this back together. But there are lots of little issues to fix up. The first one I want to deal with is this, which is where this sort of the mid part of the gun barrel attaches. I've already repaired this little piece here, which is a real weak spot on Megatron. You often see this part broken, so I've just sort of roughly glued it back together just using a bit of super glue. But if I reattach the part that I need to, which is this piece here, which you stick over the top there, then there should be a screw with a large washer sort of built into it that you screw into that. That wasn't actually on this toy, but I've managed to find something fairly similar in my parts box, so I'm going to use that. But this one is longer, which is ideal, because my plan is I'm going to drill through this original fitting through into the main part of this piece so that the screw can go right through, because at the moment that's a very weak point there. So if we can put a bit of the screw through this stronger piece of plastic, it should help. So I've got a sort of 1.5mm drill bit in my drill here. I'm just going to carefully drill into that. You can see that this screw is just slightly bigger than 1.5mm. So when we screw that in, it should just have an extra bit of fixing through. It may cause an issue though, because the trigger part of this gun actually hits sort of a little post just behind where that fitting is. So maybe we need to modify the bottom of this or trim some of this screw away. But I won't know about that until I've actually sort of fitted it together. So let's just give it a try and see what happens. Okay, I can immediately see that that screw is just a little bit too large. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill this hole out a little bit wider. So at the moment I've drilled it out with a 1.5mm drill bit. I'm going to go up to 2mm. I think that should give me enough space. I don't want to split this plastic and put too much stress on it. And I can feel when I'm screwing that in that it's just putting a little bit of stress on it. So let's drill this hole a bit bigger. Okay, that screw is now in place and it all feels pretty firm, so I'm happy with how that is fixed. But you can see the screw is just poking out there underneath, which is going to cause an issue. So if I get the trigger, that should slot in there and you should be able to pull it all the way back. But you can see it's now hitting on that screw. There's two ways I could do this. I could cut the bottom of that screw off, but I don't actually want to do that because I might end up putting a little bit more sort of reinforcement in there. So what I'm going to do is modify the trigger. I can see it's just catching just on that corner there, and I think I can just trim that corner off and it should work just as well. It's only there, I think, just to make a slight clicking noise, that thing. I can't see a reason for it because the actual trigger doesn't sort of hold back. Once you let go of it, it pings forward. There's a spring that holds those two pieces together. So just trimming off that corner is not going to make any difference as far as I can see. So I've got my plastic nippers here. Let's trim it and see if we can get that working again. Probably enough. I don't think I need to trim much away. Yeah, that's not too bad. I might just trim a little bit more off, but that's certainly going to work. So that's the fix for that little area. The next thing to fix is the loose hip joints. There are two joints on the hip part of the leg. We've got this part here which joins onto the metal part of the leg. That is actually really stiff on both of them, so that's not the loose one. It's this one here which is the one that joins again onto this section, and I think I can work out why this is loose. The way you attach this is that you pop that piece through, so you push it through like that. Then we have this little metal axle pin which you just drop into there, and then that pulls back, and then that is held in place just by a couple of bits of plastic there, and you can feel how loose that is. And then all of that is held in with this little clip here which you just sort of push in there. I reckon the middle part of this, if we thicken that with some sellotape, that's going to add a little bit of friction to that joint. You can see that it's just a little bit thinner at that point. So what I've done is I've cut myself some bits of sellotape that are about the right thickness. I'm going to wrap those around there just to make that a little bit thicker. And I think that's all it's going to need. I was thinking of doing this with PTFE tape, but you can just about see this sort of through the legs once the Megatron is put back together. So some tape like that should make it just that little bit thicker. So I'm going to wrap a little bit more around that one, and then we'll start putting all of this back together and see if it helps. But you should be able to just put tape around this one piece, and that should stiffen up both of the hips on this figure. So I think I'm now in a position that I can actually put all of this section back together, and we'll check that all of these sort of fixes have properly worked. So we need to put the trigger back in, and that has a little spring attached to it. There's a hook on the back of the trigger that you hook one part of the spring onto and slot that in place, and then the other end of the spring has to go on this post here. So just hook that there. Hopefully that will just stay in place. I don't think it's under too much pressure. Then we've already put one leg in on this side, so we then get this clip and that goes in there. That's the bit we have added the sellotape to. Then we also need the section that Megatron's head is attached to, and I think that goes around, just make sure I get this around the right way. I think that goes around that way, because you have to lift that up. Yeah, so that goes around that way. Then we've got the other side, which I've already put the leg back in, and that needs to slot over the top of this, like so. And then I'll put some screws in and we'll check how stiff these hips are. Do they feel stiffer? A little bit. Maybe I should put some more sellotape on that before we put it together. Let me have a think about that. In the end, I did wrap a bit more tape around that middle joint, just because I thought it was still a little bit on the loose side, and it seems to have worked really well. So this front section now works properly. I'm very happy with how that's on, pretty secure. And if we open the legs, you can see that both the joints are actually pretty stiff. So you can now pose this. I'm actually thinking about going back to my own personal Megatron that I've got on my shelf here, because I know this joint is particularly floppy, and I'd never really sort of bothered to work out a fix for it, but that bit of tape wrapped around it has really made a massive difference. I'm very happy with that. This is much more poseable. It just feels a much more sturdy figure. So yeah, very happy with that. I'm now going to go ahead and put the head back on. I did actually take the paint off of the face just using some of the isopropyl alcohol. And you can see that's what it would have looked like. So the paint is pretty worn on it, but I like the look of that. It's just got a little bit of age to it. The paint that was applied by hand was a bit on the sort of scruffy side. So I'm going to leave it like this. I think that looks quite nice. So I'm going to put this head back on just like it is, and also reattach the one arm that isn't broken. I'm still waiting for my supplies to arrive to fix the other arm. So might as well get the rest of this put back together in the meantime. Now a couple of days later and the rods I ordered have arrived. So these should be 5mm diameter styrene rods, and I'm hoping that they will fit perfectly in that hole there, because I need to remake the missing part on this arm. So let's open this packet and we'll see if it actually fits. I did measure as close as I could, and it sort of was just slightly under 5mm, so we should be able to modify these. Let's see how close that is. Oh, that's not bad. Just a little bit too large, but it's better to be a little bit too large than anything. But you can see that does actually fit in. That is perfect. Right, so I need to remake the little fitting on this. And my plan is to drill a small hole into the middle of that. So I'm going to drill, I'm going to say a sort of 2mm diameter hole into the middle of that. I can cut a small piece of this off. We'll sand a bit off around the edge to make it slightly thinner. And then we can glue that onto there. I think that might plastic weld on. I'm certainly hoping that that will plastic weld on. If not, I will super glue it on. And then I need to make a new little fitting, because the way that these arms are attached, there's a screw with a built-in washer, same as the sort of the screw that was used on this section here, but I don't have one. So I do have a small screw which is about the right length. I'm going to have to make a little plastic washer that fits exactly in the hole on this, which could be a bit awkward, but I can make it out of some 0.5mm thick styrene, and yeah, we'll just have to have a go with that. So let's make this first missing piece out of this newly arrived 5mm styrene rod. That feels like it attached really well. It's nice firm fixing. So let's just try it on here. We can just plop this on, see what happens. Oh yeah, that's not looking too bad. You can just about see that in there. So I am missing a washer, and I don't have a washer that size, but I've made washers before just using 0.5mm thick styrene sheet, and a hole punch. Goes straight the way through this. So what I've done is I've just drilled a hole there. I'm going to line this hole punch up so that I can see the hole in the middle of the punch, just like that, and punch away. And what we should end up with in there is a tiny piece of styrene with a hole in the middle of it, and that is my washer. I've actually made another one here which is a little bit more accurate, I think. So let's screw this onto the screw. I'll screw it on first. I just need to find myself a screwdriver. And there we go. I essentially recreated what the screw would have looked like, which is a screw with a washer built in. So we can now go ahead and put this back together. It's a little bit off-centered there, not too much, but it's yeah, it might need a little bit of fine-tuning. So let me just do a little bit of sanding on that, and then I really will screw the arm back on. But very happy with how this has come together. That piece of styrene attached really firmly, much better than I'd have thought. So that's definitely a styrene-based piece of plastic. And yeah, plastic welders just really firmly attached those two pieces on. So that is a very nice little fix there. Not one I've done before. Always nice to try something new. And there you go, that is the new fitting. That's working really nicely, but you can easily spot it because it's a white piece of styrene with a silver screw in it. The original one is black, so I'm actually just going to unscrew that and just colour it in with a black marker pen just to hide it. So here he is in gun mode with everything now in place. He's still a little bit odd looking because we are missing the barrel. Maybe I'll find one of those in time, but for now it's not important. I did stick some reproduction stickers on here. These are just ones from Toy Hacks, just to sort of finish off a look, and a reproduction rub sign there. But now let's transform him into robot mode and see how he looks then. And here he is in robot mode. I think I do need to be fairly careful with that arm. The fixing is fairly firm, but I still just want to be a little bit delicate with it in case it snaps off again. But the rest of the figure is actually not looking too bad. He's very battered and worn around the edges, but he stands up and he's posable. Both of his arms are now posable. His legs are very posable. I think he's actually a pretty nice figure, and I'm going to be really pleased to be able to use him as another mascot for Toy Polloi 2. And I do think I quite like the name Megagon. Maybe in time I will find some accessories for him. It would be quite nice to have the gun sight on his arm, because that's a sort of key part of his look. I've been having a look on eBay, and all of those pieces are crazy prices at the moment, so that's a sort of future dream piece for me. Maybe I'll find some bits in time, or maybe I'll have a go at making myself a custom one. But for now, I've got a new mascot for the channel. I do need to say a massive thank you to Alan for very kindly sending over his sort of box of busted up and broken Transformers, because I'm already having great fun building them. We've got past his prime, and now we have a Megagon as well, so that's some really nice additions to the channel. So a massive thanks to him. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you have, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And if you've really enjoyed it, then why not head on over to my main channel, Toy Polloi, and subscribe there as well. And thanks for watching.